December 26, 2024. The world watched in stunned silence as China unveiled not one, but two sixth-generation fighter prototypes over Chengdu, 3 years ahead of schedule. For decades, the United States Air Force has been the undisputed king of the skies. But in 2025, that throne is no longer secure. With China now outproducing America in fighter jets at a staggering rate of 1.2 to 1 and fielding over 300 J-20 stealth fighters, the balance of air power in the Indo-Pacific is shifting. The question is no longer if China can challenge U.S. air dominance, but when. This is the real story behind the greatest air power race since the Cold War. For over 7 decades, the United States Air Force has been the world's most technologically advanced aerial fighting force. From the deserts of Iraq to the mountains of Afghanistan, American air superiority has been absolute. The F-22 Raptor, introduced in 2005, set a new standard for stealth, speed, and lethality. The F-35 Lightning II, deployed globally across 26 allied nations, became the backbone of modern air warfare. With over 14,000 military aircraft spread across 4 service branches, America's aerial arsenal remains unmatched in sheer size and technological sophistication. But while the U.S. maintained its global commitments, China was quietly building something extraordinary. The People's Liberation Army Air Force, once dismissed as a collection of outdated Soviet knockoffs, underwent a transformation that shocked Western intelligence agencies. By 2017, China fielded the J-20 Mighty Dragon, their first fifth-generation stealth fighter. By 2025, they had produced over 300 of them. The J-35, China's carrier-capable stealth fighter, entered operational service. And then came the J-36, a sixth-generation prototype that sent shockwaves through the Pentagon. The Indo-Pacific theater has become the focal point of this rivalry. The first island chain, stretching from Japan through Taiwan to the Philippines, is where air superiority will be won or lost. And for the first time in generations, the outcome is uncertain. Let's talk about the machines themselves. The F-22 Raptor remains the gold standard of air superiority fighters. With a radar cross-section the size of a marble, top speeds exceeding Mach 2.25, and thrust vectoring engines that make it nearly untouchable in a dogfight, the Raptor is still unmatched in one-on-one combat. Only 187 were ever built, and they're flown exclusively by the United States Air Force. The F-35 Lightning II took a different approach. Designed as a multi-role platform, it sacrifices some speed and altitude for sensor fusion that's nothing short of revolutionary. The F-35 can pull data from satellites, drones, and other aircraft, creating a real-time battlefield picture that turns every pilot into a quarterback. It's stealthy, not quite as invisible as the F-22, but close, with a radar cross-section about the size of a golf ball. Over 1,150 have been delivered worldwide, making it the most widely adopted fifth-generation fighter on the planet. Then there's China's answer, the J-20 Mighty Dragon. First flown in 2011, it entered service in 2017. The J-20 is big, comparable in size to the F-22, with a wingspan of about 44 feet and an emphasis on long-range interception. It features canards for enhanced maneuverability and internal weapons bays that can carry 4 beyond visual range missiles. Its radar cross-section is estimated between 0.01 and 0.1 square meters. Less stealthy than American designs, but still formidable. What's truly alarming is the production rate. China is churning out J-20s at a rate of approximately 120 per year. By comparison, the U.S. Air Force plans to acquire just 24 F-35s in 2025. And now, the J-35. Unveiled in September 2025, it's China's first carrier-capable stealth fighter. Chinese state media claims its radar signature is palm-sized, suggesting it's approaching F-35 levels of stealth. If true, it means China now has 2 stealth fighters in mass production simultaneously. No other nation has achieved that. Here's where the math gets terrifying for American strategists. The United States operates the world's largest air force, 14,486 military aircraft in total. That includes fighters, bombers, transports, helicopters, and everything in between. China's PLAF and naval aviation combined have approximately 3,150 aircraft, with 1,900 of them fighters. On paper, America still dominates. But look closer. China's fleet has grown by 400 aircraft in just the last 3 years. The PLAF is now outproducing the U.S. in fighter aircraft at a ratio of 1.2 to 1. Admiral Samuel Papero, head of U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, testified before the Senate that China's Air Force now totals over 2,100 fighters and more than 200 H-6 bombers. But here's the critical distinction. The U.S. Air Force is a global force. It has commitments in Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and the Pacific. China's Air Force is theater-focused, concentrated in the Indo-Pacific. In a conflict over Taiwan, China wouldn't need to match America's total fleet. It would only need to achieve localized superiority in the first island chain. And in that narrow geographic focus, the numbers are far more even. The Pentagon's 2024 China Military Power Report gave China high marks for its ability to deny U.S. air superiority within the first island chain. That's a dramatic shift from the uncontested dominance America enjoyed just a decade ago. It means that in the skies over Taiwan, the South China Sea, or the East China Sea, American pilots could find themselves outnumbered. But raw numbers don't tell the whole story. Technology matters. And here, the picture becomes more nuanced. The Pentagon has acknowledged that China's unmanned aerial systems are now quickly approaching U.S. standards. The WZ-8 supersonic high-altitude reconnaissance drone has no American equivalent currently in service. China is also advancing rapidly in areas like electronic warfare, long-range air-to-air missiles, and integrated air defense systems. China's PL-15 air-to-air missile, for example, reportedly has a range exceeding 120 miles, potentially outranging the American AIM-120 AMRA. That means AJ-20 could theoretically fire first in a beyond-visual range engagement, forcing American fighters to defend before they can counterattack. U.S. forces are developing the AIM-260 JTM to counter this threat, but it's still ramping up production. China has also built one of the world's most sophisticated integrated air defense systems. Modern double-digit SAMs with ranges up to 200 kilometers blanket China's coastline and contested territories. These systems, combined with airborne early warning aircraft and networked fighter jets, create a layered defense that would challenge even stealth aircraft. However, the United States retains critical advantages. American pilots train more hours per year than their Chinese counterparts. The PLAF graduates approximately 400 new pilots annually. The U.S. Air Force trains around 1,350. More importantly, American pilots have decades of combat experience from conflicts in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, and beyond. Chinese pilots have no modern combat experience. They've never faced an enemy that shoots back. The F-22's Super Cruise capability, flying supersonic without afterburners, remains unmatched. The F-35 sensor fusion and networking create a battlefield awareness advantage that's difficult to quantify, but absolutely real. And America's infrastructure for sustained operations, aerial refueling, logistical networks. And then, on December 26, 2024, everything changed. China unveiled the J-36, a massive, tailless, 3-engine stealth fighter that appears to embody Beijing's vision of 6th-generation air combat. Escorted by a twin-seat J-20S during its maiden flight, the J-36 shocked analysts who had predicted China wouldn't fly a 6th-generation prototype until 2028. They were 3 years early. The J-36 features a blended diamond delta wing design, serrated exhaust nozzles similar to the F-22, and diverterless supersonic intakes. With a wingspan of approximately 65 feet and a length of 62 feet, it's a heavy fighter in every sense, larger than the F-111, comparable to Soviet flankers. It's designed for long-range strike missions, high-altitude interceptions, and potentially as a command and control hub for drone swarms. Satellite imagery from late 2025 confirmed that both the J-36 and Shenyang's smaller JXDS prototype have been operating out of a secretive test base near Lopner, China's equivalent to Area 51. The pace of development is breathtaking. Multiple prototypes with significant design changes have appeared in less than a year, suggesting an iterative design process that prioritizes speed over perfection. The implications are profound. U.S. Air Force officials have quietly acknowledged that the J-36 could reach initial operational capability before America's next-generation air dominance (NGAD) fighter, which won't fly until at least 2028. Secretary of the Air Force Frank Kendall stated publicly that China's progress was expected, but behind closed doors, the Pentagon is scrambling to accelerate its own programs. The U.S. awarded Boeing the contract for the F-47 sixth-generation fighter in March 2025, but the aircraft won't enter service for years. The Navy's F/A-XX program, the carrier-based sixth-gen fighter, finally received funding approval in October 2025 after a bruising budget fight. But China is already flying prototypes. Technology and pilots are only part of the equation. Wars are won with logistics, infrastructure, and the ability to sustain operations under fire. And here, America faces a critical vulnerability. U.S. forces in the Pacific operate from a handful of major air bases: Kadena in Okinawa, Andersen in Guam, Misawa and Yokota in Japan, and Osan and Kunsan in South Korea. These bases are well-known, fixed targets. China has developed a massive arsenal of ballistic and cruise missiles specifically designed to strike them. The DF-21D and DF-26 anti-ship ballistic missiles can reach Guam. The DF-17 hypersonic glide vehicle can evade most missile defenses. A 2025 Hudson Institute report warned that most U.S. aircraft losses in a Taiwan conflict would occur on the ground, not in the air. American air bases in the Pacific lack hardened aircraft shelters and individual aircraft protection. Chinese missiles could destroy dozens of fighters before they even take off. The U.S. is attempting to address this through dispersal strategies, spreading forces across smaller, less predictable airfields throughout the region. But China's missile inventory is vast enough to make even dispersal a challenge. Some estimates suggest China possesses enough firepower to overwhelm any reasonable dispersal plan. China, by contrast, has the luxury of geography. Its air bases are deep inside the mainland, beyond the range of most U.S. weapons. The PLAF can launch strikes from hardened shelters protected by layered air defenses. American forces would need to penetrate those defenses, destroy hardened targets, and sustain operations while under constant missile attack. It's a nightmare scenario that keeps Pentagon planners awake at night. So, who really dominates the skies in 2025? The answer is more complicated than a simple victor. In terms of raw capability, the United States Air Force remains the world's most advanced aerial fighting force. The F-22 Raptor is still the deadliest air superiority fighter ever built. The F-35 sensor fusion and global interoperability create a networked advantage no other nation can match. American pilots are better trained, more experienced, and supported by the most sophisticated logistics network on the planet. But air dominance isn't just about capability, it's about capacity. It's about being able to generate enough sorties, in enough places, at enough times, to achieve your objectives. And in that calculus, China is rapidly closing the gap. China's Air Force is no longer a regional threat. It's a peer competitor in the Indo-Pacific theater. The PLAF can now contest air superiority along the first island chain. It can threaten American bases and naval forces with long-range missiles and stealth fighters. It can produce aircraft faster than the United States can replace them. The sixth-generation J-36 is a game-changer. If China fields it before America deploys NGAD, there will be a window, perhaps just a few years, where Beijing possesses a technological advantage in the most critical theater on Earth. That window could embolden Chinese leadership to take risks they wouldn't otherwise consider. But America is not standing still. The F-35 production continues to expand. The NGAD program, despite delays, remains the most ambitious fighter development effort in history. The U.S. is investing heavily in unmanned combat aircraft, collaborative combat aircraft, that will serve as loyal wingmen to manned fighters. These drones could multiply American combat power without requiring more pilots. And then there's the alliance factor. Japan, South Korea, Australia, and Singapore all operate F-35s. They train alongside U.S. forces regularly. In a conflict, America wouldn't fight alone. It would fight with a coalition of technologically advanced allies. China, despite its partnerships with Russia and Pakistan, lacks a comparable network of military allies. The reality is this: the era of unchallenged American air superiority is over. The skies over the Pacific are now contested. But contested does not mean lost. The United States retains significant advantages in pilot quality, operational experience, alliance networks, and strategic depth. China has advantages in production capacity, geographic proximity, and concentrated force. The battle for air supremacy in 2025 isn't being fought in the skies, not yet. It's being fought in factories, training academies, research labs, and budget committees. It's a race of innovation, production, and strategic positioning. China has proven it can design, build, and field advanced military aircraft at a pace that rivals, and in some categories exceeds, the United States. The J-20, J-35, and J-36 represent not just technological achievements, but a fundamental shift in the global balance of power. The message is clear: China is no longer playing catch-up. In some areas, it's leading. But history teaches us that wars are not won by technology alone. They're won by the people who wield that technology, by the doctrine that guides its use, by the alliances that sustain it, and by the national will to endure when the cost becomes steep. American pilots remain the best trained in the world. American technology, while no longer unchallenged, is still at the cutting edge. American alliances are deep, tested, and genuine. These advantages matter, perhaps more than production rates and prototype unveilings. The question for 2025 and beyond is not who dominates the skies. It's whether dominance, as we've understood it for the past 75 years, is even possible anymore. The future of air combat may not belong to the nation with the best fighter jet. It may belong to the nation with the best system of systems, the one that can integrate fighters, drones, satellites, electronic warfare, and cyber operations into a seamless whole. In that race, both superpowers are running, and the finish line is closer than anyone wants to admit. The skies over the Pacific are no longer American by default. They must be defended, contested, and won every single day. And in 2025, that reality is only just beginning to sink in.